Hello, government students. Today I want to talk about the Illinois Executive Branch. This is going to be a pretty quick presentation here. What we see here is the governor's mansion down in Springfield, Illinois. It's a pretty impressive mansion. It's actually one of the oldest governor's mansions that is used in the United States of America, dating back to the middle of the 1800s. It has been renovated several times and expanded somewhat, but the heart of that mansion, which you see kind of in this section here, has been around for a long time. And the governor still lives there. It recently went through a renovation about 3 or 4 years ago, multi-million-dollar renovation to modernize it and get the electricity up to code and all those good things. And it is quite a showpiece for our state now. So let's go ahead and get started with the Illinois Executive Branch. What is the main duty of the Executive Branch? Well, the main duty, as you should remember, is basically to enforce the laws and to run the government. So we have a lot of people then that are in the executive branch who take over that responsibility of enforcing the laws and running the government. Let's take a look at the major offices of the executive branch. These are the elective offices, the people that we actually vote for to run the executive branch. Of course, the first one you'll think of is our governor, and that governor is currently J. Pritzker, sometimes referred to as J.B. Pritzker. Either way is fine. He's been our governor now for about 3 years, I believe. And let's look at what the duties of the governor are. First of all, his duty is to be in charge of the execution of the laws, that is, carrying out the laws that are passed by the legislative branch with his signature. He also is in charge of appointments. He appoints people to run our executive departments. So, for example, he would appoint someone to run the Illinois Toll Highway Authority or something like that. But whoever he appoints to office must still be approved by a majority vote in the Illinois Senate. That's one of those special powers, you might recall, of the Senate to approve the governor's appointments. He can also remove people that he appoints to office. He does not need the Senate approval to remove someone. Only to appoint someone new does he need the Senate's approval. He can remove people, fire them, in other words, at will. He also has the power to reorganize our state agencies, the departments of our state that run our government. He can reorganize those and make them more efficient, should he choose to do so. He also is given the power of pardons, reprieves, and commutations. So what are those? A pardon happens when, if you are convicted of a crime, the governor can pardon you. If the governor pardons you, that means that you are released from prison and the record of your crime is wiped clean. It's as if you never did the crime in the first place. That is a pardon, okay? There are also reprieves. A reprieve is a delay in carrying out a sentence, and I'll give you an example of why a governor might wish to issue a reprieve. Let's say someone a few years ago was convicted of possession of, a couple of grams of marijuana. The governor has the authority to issue a reprieve. Now, he may not choose to do so, but then when the legislative branch passed a law which decriminalized possession of marijuana, if you have people who are about to be sentenced for a crime which has just been decriminalized, or which we feel might soon be decriminalized, the governor may issue a reprieve on the carrying out of that sentence to wait to see what happens with this new law that's being debated, which would make this crime no longer a crime at all. And then if the legislature, with the governor's approval, should decriminalize marijuana, then the governor could go ahead and pardon this person, should he so choose to do. But he might issue initially the reprieve so this person doesn't have to spend jail time for something that's about to become legal in the first place. And the final one is a commutation. A commutation is similar to a pardon. What happens in a commutation, though, is a person is released from his criminal sentence. He gets to get out of jail, But the big difference from a pardon is the record of his crime will remain. So with a pardon, your record is made clean. It's as if you never did the crime. With a commutation, your punishment comes to an end. You're a free person, but there is still a record that you committed the crime. So you would rather have a pardon than a commutation. I'll give you an example why this is important. If you are pardoned and you go and apply for a job, and you may be asked if you've ever been convicted of a felony on your job application, if you have been pardoned, you can say no, because there is no record that you were ever convicted of that crime at all. You were pardoned. If you had received a commutation, on the other hand, you would still have to answer, yes, I have been convicted of a felony. And that will make it more than likely much more difficult for you to get a job in the future. So definitely you'd rather have a pardon. And the governor must issue legislative messages. Okay, every year he gives the State of the State address, and that's the legislative message which he is required to give in the Illinois Constitution. Basically, in this message, he will discuss what the legislature has done, what the state government has done in the past year, how we've helped the people of Illinois, and then he will also make recommendations as to what he would like the legislature to focus on in the coming year. That's typically what happens in these legislative messages. Okay, next position is the lieutenant governor, and our current lieutenant governor is Juliana Stratton. And let's see what the lieutenant governor does. Her duties are basically to perform executive powers that are assigned to her by the governor or that are prescribed by law. In other words, duties that might be assigned to her by the legislative branch in a law. In other words, the lieutenant governor doesn't have any clear-cut duties in our Constitution. She does whatever the governor tells her to do, or whatever the state legislature should tell her to do. That is the extent of her duties. She is the person, however, should the governor's position become vacant, either through the death of the governor, the resignation of the governor, whatever, she would then fill in the role of governor. If the governor's office becomes vacant, the lieutenant governor will become the acting governor at that point. Our next person is the Attorney General, and our current Attorney General is Kwame Raoul. And let's see what the Attorney General's responsibilities are. He is our chief legal officer. In other words, he is the attorney that represents the people of the state of Illinois. It's important to understand that the Attorney General does not represent the governor. He doesn't represent necessarily even the government of the state of Illinois. He is technically representing the people of Illinois. And in these legal proceedings representing the people, I'll give you an example of a distinction here between representing the governor or executive branch members or representing the people. We've talked a little bit about our governor some years ago who was impeached and removed and convicted of criminal activity, Rod Blagojevich. When Rod Blagojevich got in trouble, and it became known that he was doing some illegal things, such as trying to sell a Senate seat, the Attorney General at that time is the one who actually filed charges, criminal charges, against the sitting governor. So even though the Attorney General is a part of the executive branch, and the executive branch is run by the governor, the Attorney General is completely independent of the governor. The governor cannot tell the Attorney General what to do. And in the case of Blagojevich, it was actually our Attorney General in the state of Illinois who first took the lead in prosecuting the governor for crimes that he had committed against the people of Illinois. He is also in charge of all of our state prosecutors. Our prosecutors are the ones who actually will, try. They're the ones who will actually run the trial on behalf of the people of Illinois against a criminal defendant. The criminal defendant will hire his own prosecutors who will be his defense attorneys, and they'll be fighting against the state prosecutors who are representing the people trying to convict someone of a crime against our state. Next up is our Secretary of State, Jesse White. Jesse White's been our Secretary of State for a very long time, going back at least 20 years, maybe I suspect perhaps even longer. He's an interesting guy. He used to work with underprivileged kids in poor neighborhoods of Chicago. He put together a group called the Jesse White Tumblers, basically incredibly good gymnasts and acrobats who would oftentimes perform, for example, during the halftime of Chicago Bulls games, and had appeared in television a few times. And he would take these underprivileged kids and turn them into truly world-class athletes in the Jesse White Tumblers. But anyway, back about 25 years ago, he got involved in the state government, and he has been our Secretary of State for quite some time. His duties: he maintains the official state records of our state. So whenever there's a new law, he's the one that maintains, and files away all the laws that we have. When you go and get a driver's license, he's the one who has the records of your status as a driver in the state of Illinois. So he maintains all of these official state records. And he also keeps the Great Seal of the state of Illinois. So this is a real thing. Whenever a new law is passed, it is sealed. It is stamped with the Great Seal of the state of Illinois, and that's what makes something official. I believe you probably would see the Great Seal of the state of Illinois maybe on your driver's license. Not 100% sure of that, but you might want to check and see if it's there. Next up is our Comptroller. Susana Mendoza is our Comptroller. Here's the duties of the Comptroller. She maintains the state's fiscal accounts. She's our state's chief accountant. If the Attorney General is our state's chief lawyer, the Comptroller is our state's chief accountant, maintaining our fiscal accounts, that is, all of our monetary accounts. She is also in charge of ordering payments into and out of the state treasury. So when the state has to pay a bill, for example, it's Susana Mendoza that authorized the payment of that bill. When we pay our state income taxes, she's the one in charge of ensuring that the income taxes are being paid and put into the proper accounts. So that's our Comptroller, our chief accountant. Next up is our Treasurer. Michael Frerichs is his name. His duties: he keeps and invests our state's financial assets. It's a job somewhat similar to the Comptroller, but there are some differences. When the Comptroller oversees payment into our treasury, once it's in our treasury, then Michael Frerichs takes over, our treasurer, and he'll take that money and invest it, try to make sure that the money is growing. So he'll put it most likely into some conservative investments. It might include some stocks and bonds. It might include different types of savings accounts, but he's going to try to gain some interest or other types of financial growth in our state's financial assets. And then he is also in charge of making the payments out of the Treasury as directed by the Comptroller. So here's how that works. We have a bill that needs to get paid for the state. The Comptroller authorizes the bill to be paid, but the Comptroller does not actually cut the check. It's the Treasurer who actually cuts the check to pay that bill. But he can only write a check to pay a bill if he is directed to do so by the Comptroller. The thought is that should make it more difficult and less likely that someone is going to try to steal money out of the Treasury. We have two people basically overseeing any kind of payment out of the Treasury, so it makes it less likely that there could be some corruption involved because they're kind of overseeing the activities of each other. So these are all of the elective offices of the state of Illinois, that is, of the state of Illinois executive branch. Just one other thing on this, all of these people are currently Democrats. We have had, in the past several who were Republicans, but right now, as of the last year, every elective office in our state is held by a Democrat. And with that, we're going to close our presentation. Check Canvas. You might have a worksheet there. I believe you do have a worksheet, and all of the, or at least most of the questions on that worksheet we've already answered on this presentation. So hopefully you took good notes. It will be easy then for you to answer the questions on our Illinois Executive Branch worksheet. And we'll talk to you later.